All right. Thank you guys so much for joining the webinar today. We're going to go ahead and kick off the webinar, which is going to cover a really important topic in today's business environment. We're going to be going over international expansion post-pandemic with kind of a pandemic context so that companies can kind of see where we've come and where we're going. My name is Joe Flaten. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and founding partner of Konsyg. Today, our agenda is going to be, we're going to introduce myself. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience in international expansion and how I've worked with companies personally. We're also going to be talking about Konsyg, our company, and the way that we help companies to expand internationally in our expertise as an entire organization. We're going to be looking at the historical perspective, which is important to see kind of how international expansion has worked in the past. And we're going to be looking at business practices, how things have changed to help international expansion be what it is today and be what it can be. We're going to be looking at economic threats, what companies should look out for and what they might be experiencing in the markets today, as well as opportunities that we can see in the markets. Finally, we're going to wrap up with strategies for success, which is going to be really important to glean kind of the expertise and lessons learned that we've had as a company launching so many campaigns over the years. So once again, my name is Joe Flaten. I'm a founding partner and the Chief Revenue Officer of Konsyg. I've worked with the company since its inception in 2017. I've worked with so many companies as they create their strategies, their go-to-market strategies for global expansion, and have worked very closely with the teams and our clients and finding solutions as well as working through problems and really helping to leverage their strengths to capitalize on global markets and expansion. Our company, Konsyg, its entire creation had global expansion in mind. Our founder, William Gilchrist, had an idea that companies weren't really leveraging global markets as well as employing best practices in sales as they kind of execute globally. We've worked with over 200 clients in executing global campaigns. We have teams around the world in, over 20 different languages, which can, be there where our companies need us in the markets that they're going after. And we can also help open ones that they might have not even thought of. We've been able to generate over $100 million in revenue for our clients and 2,500 sales touches a day, which just kind of underlines the amount of activities that our companies, our clients are enjoying every day. So let's go ahead and look at our international trade in a historical perspective. It's important to understand where we've been, to understand where we're going. Everybody kind of understands this reference here, the ancient origins of global trade. Here we have the Silk Road. So the Silk Road was very instrumental in kind of laying the foundations for international trade, kind of an east to west kind of idea of trading of not only products and goods, but also ideas and technology. So everybody knows about the silk that was traded and maybe paper, gunpowder, gold, but there was also a trading of ideas, business practices, technologies, philosophies, these type of things that really, we're seeing today is happening so rapidly. There was a historical kind of origin that we need to keep into context so that we can also inform that as we go along. Now, we also want to look at the technology and the way that things have changed pre and post COVID here. So in the beginning of 2019, ending up into 2020, you saw a big shift. Everybody knows this kind of setting here, our old-fashioned meeting. So we all remember these meetings. Everybody would gather into a room and share ideas and be very close. There's no masks in this photo at all. This is our 2019 reality here. We had strict work lifestyle. Everyone was expected to come into an office and commute. In-person meetings were happening. There were a lot of people going into a boardroom. The whiteboard was very popular. And we also had to travel to meet prospects and clients. I remember in the end of the teens there was a lot of travel. Almost every month we'd have to go meet a client in order to close business. It was very important to get those handshakes, to take people out to dinners and coffees, sit there with them in the room and make a presentation and really press the flesh, as it would be. We had to share information on site, bring up the presentations, write it up on the board, really share in a room, in an office, traveling there, really meeting somebody in person, which is very important for sales, to create those relationships in person. Also, if you were doing business internationally, it was very important to have a regional presence, as you might say, a regional office. So if you wanted to set up your APAC office, you might have an office there in Hong Kong or Singapore or Shanghai, where you'd need to rent some office space. You'd need to also have an expat coming in and landing into that country, setting up a life with their family, paying a lot of salary there, as well as securing work permits and visas, setting up a company, which is extremely complex for many kind of people going into these markets, as well as having a lot of global mobility, a lot of travel, as I mentioned. So all of this reality in 2019 or pre-pandemic was very cost intensive. It was very people intensive, that you really needed to have a physical presence. You needed to meet people in person. Now, turning the page to 2020, now we know this photo here. It's very familiar to us. So this is where we are today. And this is a very a very interesting, kind of reality that we live in today, where everything can be done virtually. Everything can kind of happen where we are sitting at our own homes. We're living in what they call the Zoom economy. The nature of work has really changed. We have a work from home economy where people can be anywhere in the world and they can be in a business meeting. You have your home office set up, you have your tech, you have your light, you have your home office, high-speed internet, which is really great for business and for sales. All of this has helped create kind of a virtual decision-making kind of process here. Before, we needed people to be in the office to come into the meeting. Hey, my boss isn't in today. But now there's no excuse. You can just send a link, and the boss might be in a taxi cab going down the road, and they can still be in the meeting. Before, it wasn't as common. People might have not had that technology set up, but now everybody's expected to. So there's a lot faster buy-in and sales process here. It's really accelerated inside sales, as you might call it, where companies are able to do business very quickly and efficiently in terms of international sales. So it's really broken down the barriers. Meetings are also all remote. You can have a meeting from anywhere in the world, as I mentioned, from the beach, from a coffee shop, and people now have this technology, and it's no big deal. Before, it was very important for business practice and your kind of business manner to be in the meeting in person. Now it's really not expected. You can be anywhere in the world, which is great for international business, anywhere, anytime. There's also been a huge explosion of virtual boardroom technology, virtual offices, all of these kind of Zoom software lookalikes, and kind of the way that people meet There's hundreds of companies now that offer virtual meeting rooms. Also, the way that we share information has changed a lot. Everything has now kind of gone into the cloud. The digital transformation has been complete for most companies. Everyone has a digital setup where everything goes into the cloud. It's shared virtually. And it's really kind of created a sales process that's very streamlined. It's automated a lot of things. So digital transformation and the way that companies have evolved pre and post pandemic has really been an important kind of jump forward for sales, the way we do business, and opportunities for global expansion. Before this, you might not have had the same kind of opportunities there to share and to meet and to really kind of everyone's online, even people who didn't know much about virtual meetings before. Now everyone's expected to do it. Now, let's look at the market outlook. This is really important to understand kind of how we're going to tackle markets globally right now. Now, we got out of COVID and everyone thought everything was going to be great, right? Oh, hooray, COVID's over. The economy is going to be fabulous. Everybody's back to work. The market's going to be great. Well, guess what? Things weren't so rosy. We had a 40-year high inflation rate in the US, which rippled through the global economy. Everywhere in the world is now experiencing inflation. There's also a looming recession on the horizon. With inflation comes lowered spending, which ends up in recession, which means companies aren't growing as fast. And they're bracing for that threat. Everyone's getting ready and geared up. Uh-oh, is a recession here? Is it not? There's also a lack of investors here. We'll talk about on the next slide as well, but when you have this inflation, the Fed wants to ratchet up the old interest rates, which caused VCs to really kind of have a hard time here in securing the cash. We've had a market meltdown. This year was not a great year for tech. 2020, 2021, there was a wild tech boom. However, in 2022, it all came crashing down with companies like Tesla, Amazon, Meta. Some of them having 50, 60, 70% crashes in their stock prices, which caused layoffs and kind of a little bit of a letdown for tech there, which we all work in, all right? We're tech people. So it's not been great for tech, which has kind of, a lot of companies have kind of tightened belts on spending. As we know, crypto has had a dismal year here with FTX crashing and burning, and some of those listings going down 90% or more are worthless. As I mentioned, the interest rates have now been ratcheted up from the Fed, historic interest rate raises. So what that means is it's the end of cheap money. So a lot of companies and tech companies in particular were living off of cheap VC cash. So what that meant is that they were getting a lot of cash in from VCs, which meant that they were kind of almost like zombie companies in a way, where they were getting this cash, but not really proving it through their own revenue growth and kind of the way that they were expanding globally, or the way that they're expanding in their own markets that they're supposed to be. They were just basically living off VC money. But now all of that's changed. VC money's drying up. They're not going to be getting that same cheap cash because money's now more expensive. It has a very high interest rate on it. So VCs aren't going to be dishing that out in the same way. So these companies really need to make sure that they are looking at growing revenue, showing those users, showing that cash coming in, and being able to put that on their balance sheet so that they can prove that they deserve to be in the market. We're also looking at something called the Great Resignation, where a lot of people are quitting out. Maybe they don't want to work. We got a lot of millennials out there. And it's a kind of a paradox between a tight labor market, but also kind of recession looming. So we've got some very interesting kind of market dynamics here. So what would I say would be a great opportunity here for companies who do need to prove out revenue. They're having maybe some tough markets at home. If you're in the US, you've seen kind of the belt tightening here with the inflation and the looming recession. Well, maybe it's a good time to look at the rest of the world. So the US only accounts for about 20, even though it's the top in the world in terms of the top global economy, it's only about 20% of the total global GDP. The rest of the world is 80% of that total global GDP, meaning there's trillions of dollars out there just ready for companies to go out and exploit and to capitalize on. Well, you might ask yourself, why aren't companies going out into the market? Why are they staying in one kind of market? Why are companies in the US just staying in the US? Why are companies in the UK not leveraging APAC or not leveraging the rest of Europe or South America or the Middle East or these global markets that do have a lot of buying power and are looking for solutions like theirs? Well, there's a lot of misconceptions. Companies might not know, and they might not understand that there are a lot of opportunities, and they might be afraid of that ease of market entry. They don't know how to enter a new market. They might not have ever had experience doing it. They might have only operated in their home countries and never done business globally. So they just don't know how to execute. They don't know the best way to connect with companies. They don't know the best way to open those doors and to make the connections with a company around the world. And they might not understand anything about purchasing power in developing countries or new markets, the way that they actually do business and the way that they spend money. They might also be a bit concerned about language barrier. They don't know which countries might speak English or speak the same language as them and how they're going to be able to communicate. However, our premise here at Konsyg is that right now is the best time ever to expand globally, to come into new markets and to really capitalize and create those new streams of revenue. So we've been in business for 5.5, going on 6 years at Konsyg. As I mentioned, we've launched over 200 campaigns globally in sales, in account-based marketing, in business development. So we've learned a lot of lessons, kind of what to do, what not to do. Our campaigns have ranged from space tech to fintech to cybersecurity, localization, all types of agencies as well, from marketing agencies to financial services. So we've been able to see so many different industries, so many different markets, so many different ways to really to go into these markets globally. We have experience with company setups, with dealing with all of the different languages, business practices, and from one end of the earth to the other, as you might say. So we've really seen it all. These are strategies that we've seen that are going to really help companies to expand and to really start off in easy markets for them. We don't want companies to start off in the most challenging markets in the world. If you're in the US or you're in the UK or Europe and you're looking to do global expansion, you might not hit China first, right? There's a lot of other markets that might be a little bit easier for you to capitalize on than kind of these really kind of difficult. You might not hit Japan first. You might not go to Korea or to India. These are areas that do have a lot of purchasing power and a lot of ability to buy your product, but they take a little bit extra time and a little bit more expertise than some of these other markets that we can go over. So what we want to do first when we create a global expansion campaign is to do something that we call English speaking global. So if you are an English speaking company, or you have the ability to speak English, let's say that you're in Canada, you're in the US, you're in Europe, or even South America, South Africa, wherever you are in the world, if you're in APAC and you guys have an English speaking ability, leverage that, right? Let's start there and let's go into these English speaking global markets. We can create a really easy campaign with that. And people would be surprised that most larger companies in the world will have opportunities in English speaking global. So you can go ahead and go into Thailand, you can go into Malaysia, you can go into China, you can go into a lot of different markets globally, and you can find English speaking people in those companies, which is going to be a great way for you to kind of create business connections, and there is that opportunity there. Another way that you can go into the market is find countries and industries with a high rate of connectivity. Connectivity means that, are you able to connect with decision makers in these industries and in these markets? A lot of industries are easier to get a hold of than others. So if you have a fintech platform and you're trying to get into banking in the UK, that's going to take a little bit longer as if you're going into banking in Norway or banking in Singapore or banking in ANZ. There's different markets and different industries which have varying rates of connectivity. Also, the way that you can do outreach is by, customized email, customized LinkedIn approaches, picking up the phone and giving a call. Every single market in the world has a different rate of connectivity on the phone, on the email, on LinkedIn outreach, through networks that you may have created over the years. So try and strategize to go into the path of least resistance in terms of your tech connectivity. You really need to strategize what are some ways to connect with some of the easier industries, easier markets. Don't go for the hardest one first off. Really create some strategies where you can create several different strategies with kind of a easy, low-hanging fruit, and then go after the harder ones as you go along. So you can have a few different areas to strategize in and see which one creates traction first. So it's important to have several different strategies of connectivity at once. Also, go into markets with purchasing power. It's a big world out there, right? And different countries have different levels of purchasing power. Are they going to be able to afford your product or your service when you go into them? Are they going to have the same type of buying practices and sales cycles that you have in your own strategies? If you have noticed that in the US or in the UK or in Germany, wherever you're at in the world, or you're in Singapore and you have a 3-month sales cycle there, don't go into countries where they might really drag out the sales for 6-9 months, a year. There's a lot of countries in the world where they do business in a much more relaxed and longer way. They might want to take the meeting with you and they might start the conversation, but they might not kind of want to execute for a very long time. So there's certain markets that every country needs, or company needs to be aware of when they go into these markets, that, hey, these areas do have a much longer sales cycle, and they also don't have the same purchasing power, or they're a little bit wary of spending that cash right away. And that varies per country. Shorter sales cycles, as I just mentioned, go after those that have the sales cycles that you have in your own strategy. Also, look at overlooked countries that have overlooked opportunities. There's a lot of countries where you might not think of right off the bat. So let's say that you're a company in the US and you want to expand into APAC. Everybody's heard of, how much Indonesia is growing right now. They are have one of the highest growth rates in the whole world. They have a huge population, and that's a great area for kind of leveraging tech right now. But you also want to look at maybe Australia, ANZ. That's a great market that a lot of companies might overlook in terms of um, being able to leverage, maybe because of the time difference, or they don't think it's a big enough market. But looking around the world and really going places that other countries might not actually be going to as strongly. Everybody wants to go after the big, flashy kind of markets, right? Everyone in Europe, everyone in APAC goes after the US, all right? Which means that the rate of connectivity, the rate of engagement might be a little bit longer for some. Everyone also wants to go after the UK. The UK also might have a little bit longer in the way that you need to invest your time, invest your resources to go into those markets, just because they're getting a lot of interest for companies wanting to do business there. So they're getting a lot of emails, they're getting a lot of calls, they're getting a lot of connections from companies trying to go in and trying to engage with them. Why not look at some of the overlooked opportunities? We've had a lot of success in the Nordics, in Norway, Finland, Denmark, these areas in Europe where, a lot of companies from APAC try to go to the UK first off. Well, why not try the Netherlands? Why not try Belgium? Why not try Switzerland? These kind of markets where they also have a very strong purchasing power, but it's a lot easier to get your foot in the door. Now, you can take the UK, you can keep going after them, you can keep going after the US, you can keep going after Singapore or wherever that kind of first tier market is, or Hong Kong, but keep your options open. You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket and say, we're just going after this this key market, and then kind of ignoring some of these secondary markets where it's going to be easier for you to do business with and get in there more easily, right? When let's say that you're trying to open up the UK, well, they have very, very strong GDPR rules. They have a lot of very strict gatekeepers. They have, a lot of softwares that want to block out your email from even getting in to the decision maker. They don't let you connect with anybody. So there's ways to get into the market, but it's just going to take a lot longer. So really diversify your strategy and look for other ways to capitalize on your global expansion. Now, another thing that you need to really look out for when you do this, these expansions, is have some understanding, right? I wouldn't go into a market like Thailand, for example, or somewhere like Korea or Japan, or even somewhere like Saudi Arabia or somewhere, unless you knew a lot about the local culture, the way that they do business, somebody that can read the room, somebody that can understand a bit about the business practice. It's not impossible for somebody who's never done business there to do that, but it's very helpful to have somebody local, or to have somebody who has done a lot of business there before, who understands what the sales cycles are like, what the purchasing process is like, what the decision maker might be thinking, how the power structure might be set up in the company. A lot of these might be, they're not a flat company as we kind of look at in a lot of kind of international understanding. They might be very hierarchical, where they have one decision maker who needs to be looped in, and you need to be able to look out for that and to understand how these very unique business cultures are set up and how you're going to be able to leverage those. Okay, so that is in a nutshell what we have seen in the markets, what you guys have in terms of opportunities. And I wanted to invite you to check out our company Konsyg.com if you haven't so far. You might have talked to us in the past, or you might be in the market for kind of looking globally. We provide global on-demand sales teams. We have expertise in doing this for many different types of tech and industries globally. You can go ahead and go onto our website, fill out our little form there, and we'll give you a consultation, and it's really easy to get a hold of us. So feel free to reach out. My email is here, joe@konsyg.com, if you have any questions. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us at any time. As I mentioned in the presentation, we've never been in such a great position to really capitalize on global markets. It's a lot easier than companies think. There's so many different opportunities out there. Companies in the East want to do business with companies in the West. Companies in the West also should be looking globally to really kind of open up these revenue streams, diversify, and to really kind of work towards becoming global entities. It's a lot easier than you think. So I'm Joe Flaten. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys all joining.